Okay, you are live. Welcome, everyone, to tonight's Moshiach Matters class on Monday night. Hi. Let's hop right in. We are on the final parsha, so it's a combined parsha, and sicha of the fourth book of the Torah, Book Midbar. It's going to be Shabbos Chazak. Ooh. Okay, just cut myself off. It's going to be Shabbos Chazak to Shabbat, meaning it is going to be the final book of this Torah portion of the fourth book of the Torah. Then we move on to Devarim, the final fifth book of the Torah, as we end up another cycle. Baruch Hashem. Okay, let's hop right in. This is Parshas Matos Umasai. Aleph. Ma'inyanim yuchadin the Yom Shabbos Kodesh Shabo Masiyamim Sefer B'Midbar. Sefer Ravi'i B'Torah. Shesiyamo Mahaveh Gam Siyom L'Kal HaTorah. Okay, and in this Shabbat, we are finishing up the fourth book of the Torah, which is actually the completion of the entire Torah, because we know that the fifth book of the Torah is called what is known as the Mishnah Torah, which is a compilation of all the previous five books, if you will, a summation. And at the end of the reading of the Torah portion on Shabbos, we say, Chazak, Chazak, v'nitchazek. May we be strong and strengthen others. And this is emphasized specifically in this Shabbos Chazak, since it is a completion, as we say, of the main part of the Torah, the four books of the Torah. And therefore, it's a strengthening of the entire Torah, not just this Torah portion. Okay. So we want to connect the finishing of the fourth book of the Torah. The Rebbe explains the times that we are in. And we always finish the fourth book of the Torah during the 3 weeks that we're in now. And in many years, in the Shabbos before the 9 days. The Chora has man the Gemal Shavuos the Beprat Test Hayamim Kasher Ima Amor Metzav Shal Chalishois Kedusha. The Rebbe says it's interesting to point out that these 3 weeks are known as the Bein HaMitzrim, the days of narrow. Historically, they have not been the greatest of times for the Jewish people during these 3 weeks. There are certain mourning rites that are taken on during these 3 weeks, which intensify as we get up to the 9 days. But nevertheless, we're saying chazak, chazak, v'nitchazek. We're talking about strengthening in a time of what appears to be weakness. So they seem to be two opposite messages. The chora yesh lamar shehavanitanas kevan shehazman zeh kasher ima amor matzav shel halishais. So similarly, there's to say that the reason that, or the connection we would find, is that since we're in a time of weakening, it's proper to say, let's be strengthened. What's the issue with that? That seems to make sense. And we see this in the day of Shabbat. Shabbat Hazak. It's called Shabbat of strengthening. Hainu. Shabbat zeh. Hu chizuk u'masiyanu v'dasinu b'kiyum b'torah v'mitzvos. So the Rebbe said it's not just an ordinary strengthening. In fact, it is a strengthening of all of our deeds and all of our service, and fulfilling the Torah and the mitzvot, which are emphasized in the first 4 books of Torah that are coming to a completion. All right, so let's get into this a little bit deeper. The Teichen have Parsha Shuvo Misrayim Masi for Parshas Matos from Masa. We are now in the final, as we said, Parsha, which is very often combined, which is in this year, and in the year the Rebbe gave the Sicha, Matos and Masa, these 2 Parshas combined. So therefore, we see this includes the Hazaka of Masa and Hazaka of Masa, because they're put together. In Hazaka, Hazak, B'Pragimel, Hamim, Hazak, Shayach, the Matos. So we can understand, the Rebbe says, the idea of Hazak as it's connecting to Parsha Matot or Matos. Because a Matot also is the root of Mateh, which is a staff. And a staff is something that goes on strength, that is not really susceptible to change. It doesn't bend, it doesn't move, it's strong. For example, Matek Pshuto hu Chazak Kasher, something that's hard and strong. Van Matehu Lashon Mashallah Vishahara. Lashon Hakasu Matas Oiz Al Shivat Mishalim. It also refers to a ruling that's coming from a high place. Another word in the Hebrew language which is indicative of strength, power, if you will. But this is not the case of Ma'aseh. Ma'aseh, which is the final book connected, is indicative of traveling, going, and moving from one place to another place. And you don't stand still in one place. You got to keep moving. You must travel to another place. And we know that our sages teach us that when we're in a constant state of moving, this does not cause strength, and it causes weakening, right? When you stay in a place, you build roots, you become strong, you get connected. But when you constantly have to pick up, we all have traveled before, right? You got to go, you schlep, you pick up, you got to go to the next place. And especially in the Midbar, when the Jewish people were traveling in the desert and they had to set up the Mishkan wherever they went, it was a major operation to set up the Mishkan. We're not talking about just throwing a couple boards together. When they set up shop, it had to be complete all the way, even if they're only there for a short period of time, a couple of days. So that takes a lot of effort. And therefore, we know that when we're saying Hazak, Hazak, Vanit, Chazek, even though Ma'aseh is combined with Matot, nevertheless, the last book of the Torah is Ma'aseh, which is connected to traveling or weakening, we would say. And that is specifically when we say Chazak, Chazak. So let's delve into this now. Now the Rebbe is going to go deep into these two matters. So one explanation is Hazaka. We know that a Hazaka in Hebrew is connected to the number 3. And specifically referring to a triangle having, of course, 3 sides. מרגישה החזק ונתחזק גם במקום שיש מנגד. כידוע שמספר 1 מוראה מאמור המצב שיש מתחילה רק טוב וקדושה. So the number 1, the Rebbe says, in and of itself is connected to something that is good and is holy in and of itself. Then you introduce the number 2. The number 2 gives the possibility for what we call a maklokis, or a division, right? You have the first day is chesed, and the second day is gavora, light and darkness. You automatically have these 2 energies at opposition to one another. So when you introduce a second, you introduce the potential for opposition. But because now there's something opposite that one. But when you introduce the number 3, it brings peace, because now you have 2 opposites. Now you add a third component, which helps bring both of these opposite energies to what we call homeostasis, or a sense of calmness, right? We have in the English vernacular, you have what we say is thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Synthesis is when you're taking these 2 opposite energies and fusing them together. And this is the power of the number 3. So this power from the number 3 comes in 2 different ways. The first is the power from above, which is talking about a strength that is drawing down light of holiness from above, to below. Makom in all places. Even when there is a place of opposition. And the advantage is this light is what we call bli gvul. It's a light from above, from God, that does not have a reckoning for anything below, and is just coming full power down. Second, mitzad hatachtain, the strengthening from below. Shavora haloyas hatachtain. Uboyfin shachazak v'toichef. Lamata min neged yisra mazeh lahapchot kedusha. Now you have the second energy from below to above. So you have these two things, above to below and below to above. I lost my place. Oh, okay. The bitomen, okay. And but based on Fanim Edom Rumzin Chazak Parshas Matos Masai. And both of these are referring to the strength that we are learning about in this week's Parsha Matos Masai. Hazak the Parshas Matos. So the strength that is connected to Matos is a strength that's coming from above to below. And Moshe spoke to the heads of the tribes. Something that was commanded through God. And this is a strength that's coming down from God, meaning from above to below, that doesn't have a reckoning with anything that's in its way, if you will. But from Masai, it's coming from below. And these are the journeys of the Jewish people that went out from Egypt. And this is strengthening the service of the Jewish people that are rectifying the world from above and below. בדבר, לפי ערך מעמוד המצב של התחתון, נמצאים תמיד בתנועה של הליכה וניסוע ממצרים, לארץ ישראל. Okay, so now we have the energy that's traveling from below to above, and we find this continuously is in this concept of going, like when they went out of Egypt to the land of Israel, from below to above, to a low place to a holy place. And according to this, we could understand the real strengthening is coming from Parshas Masai specifically. Because the strengthening is coming from a place where there's opposition, and therefore the energy is emphasized specifically on rectifying the lower aspects of reality. And this is not only the strengthening that is coming, we say, from the light of Bli Gvul, the energy from God above, that is drawing down into a place where even if there's opposition, that it has no reckoning with it. And the Adzais, but furthermore, Shishna, he's quotes, not only that, it is sometimes an energy that is completely opposite of holiness. But the ultimate completion we see is unifying both of these energies together, matot or masai. The strength of matot is when there's an advantage of the light of holiness that is above from the boundaries of this limited world. Yes, but the strength that is coming from above. Is not connected at all to the existence of the lower worlds. That are opposing it. And now, of course, we have the strength of Maaseh, of the journeys, that there is to an advantage of Bittul. That it has the capability of nullifying and transforming the lower aspect because it's coming from below, but it doesn't have the power of the strong light that comes from above. In other words, it's coming more from our powers, so to speak, even though our powers come from God, than from God's powers directly. And therefore, and therefore we have to have both of these advantages together. The first power of the light that's drawn down from above And the power that's coming from the lower part of reality that has the ability to nullify the lower part of the world because it has what we say, a shaykhus, a relevance to it. And both of them together. So bittul hamin neged, but oifen kavua nitzchi. This tremendous power to nullify anything that is opposing it and to be in a permanent, eternal way. Dalit. In addition to the Dafka, they come together specifically in the number 4, finishing the 4th book of the Torah, but Midbar. The 4th book of the Torah. That even though the number 3 is going on strength, כלומר, אף שמחובר האור האחד עם השנים, בכל מקום יש גם החיבור של בייס כיבים. So it says that even though the number 3 balances out 2, because we already said 1 is Kedusha with no opposition, 2 is when there's opposition with an opposite energy, 3 balances them both out, but the ultimate completion is higher than 3, because the third leg, so to speak, still has a connection to both of them. But the Rebbe says now the true complete strengthening of Hazak is the number 4. Dargas michad mifnei atzmo she'eno mehemshek le'achad v'shanayim shebo mirgash v'shlemas hatshivot. And therefore the Rebbe says, because the number 3 has still a relevance to the first 2, it balances their energy, but some of that energy is taken away in the balancing measure. Whereas if you have number 4, it's complete because the number 4 has no connection to the first 2 like the number 3 does. And therefore we see to sit properly in a real sit way, a chair has 4 legs. Consider a 3-leg chair, right? A tripod has 3 legs to it. But put some weight on it, you really need 4 legs. And that's why the Rebbe says that the number 4 is even a completion of the strengthening, more than the number 3. But we're not going to be happy with that right there. We must continue on. And therefore, is to say even more than the level 4 is, you guessed it, number 5. Shabbat Parshas Matzos Masai Michilo Dikri Sefer Chamisha B'Torah. In Mincha, we start the 5th book of the Torah. V'spa Yosera B'Shana Zu. Yisiyam Sefer Revi Yisha B'Torah Hu B'Chodesh Menachem Av. And in this year, the 4th book finishes up in the month of Menachem Av. Chodesh Chamishi, the 5th month of the year. Kedua Chamishi Hu Daga Haki Na'al Shleimas Medina Hagbalda. We know the number 5 is connected to what we call the world of Adam Kadmon, or primordial man, which is above the whole entire chain of creation. It's godly energy that's in a higher realm, and that is connected to the number 5, because there are 4 main worlds in Seder Hishtalshlus, Etzilus, Bariya, Yetzira, and Asiya. And then in the world of Etzia, there's 7 spiritual worlds before we get to our physical world. But then you have the higher world, which is rarely referenced in normal Hasidic teachings, but it is spoken about in deeper matters, where you talk about the number 5, which is Adam Kadmon, otherwise known as Ak, which is the 5th level, which is these uncontrollable wild lights, which is the source of Paro, of the king of Egypt. Isparav is galing mine kol noharim ubekoach zeh dafka nasher chibur beis katzvin hamshachim el yana betachlis shleimus, and therefore the number 5 brings a whole new level of completion, even more than 4 and even more than 3. Hey, all sefer. And we see it's Kashkacha Patis, how this is all connected to the 3 weeks in which we find ourselves in now. Excuse me 1 second, I just want to do yes, let's continue on. Hadam, first of all, Shakavan v'tachlis hachorban v'golus, that the ultimate intention of the destruction and the exile that we find ourselves in, the destruction of the temples and the current final exile, we should hurry up already. He all manas levola mala mahashlemas binyan beis hamikdash asin legoa esida mala b'shlemas enyan hazak beis hamikdash shishi legoa shlemas. We see that the all these stories of the Tisha B'Av, the horrific things that took place on the destruction of the first two temples, was all to rebuild the third temple, because the third temple will be hazak, it will be strong, it will be eternal, it will never fall, it will exist forever. So what does that mean? The advantage of the future temple number 3, we say in the song of the day, that we need to enter the land, the Holy Land, for the third temple. It's that if the Jewish people would have merited, Mashiach would have came already when we left Egypt. Ours, we would have already entered the land of Israel with Moshe. And the base of Mikdash would have happened immediately at that point in time. But that is not what happened. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the history of the last few thousand years. The years Lamar, there is to say. That all matters of the Torah are eternal. ישנה גם אתה, איננו גול וניצית בבית המקדש נצחי, באופן שחזק בתוך, אלא שחזק בתוך שלהם, הוא מצר היום בלבד. ולכן בעולמו של התחתון ישנה מצר של חורבן וגלות. So the Rebbe said, when the first temple came, the reason it was destroyed, we're not going to the, what we call as the Hitzoni reasons, the revealed reasons, right? Baseless hatred. There's, many reasons that the temples were destroyed. But from an inner dimension, they were destroyed because the lower worlds, if you would, the physical reality of the world was not refined to the level of being able to be a proper vessel for this upper energy above. And therefore, a subsequent exile was necessitated to rectify this energy. And the same thing with the second temple. The second temple had this energy from below, but was lacking the big lights and the big energy from the first base of Mikdash that came from above. When I say above and below, where everything's God, we're talking spiritual and physical, to some extent, higher energies and lower energies, if you will. Meaning the higher energies coming from the heavens and the lower energies coming from the earth. But nevertheless, they were both destroyed because they weren't complete. And therefore, the Rebbe said the third temple will be eternal because it will have both of those advantages, from the first temple and the second temple. The high, lofty energy of the lights from above and the energy from our work down here below. Wow. And this is the difference in the first two and the final Beit Rishon. By the way, this is a very apropos that we're learning this now, because we're specifically during these 3 weeks we're obligated to learn about the Beis Hamikdash, because when you learn about the Beis Hamikdash, it's considered as if you partook in building the Beis Hamikdash. So we have a bonus this week. Not only are we learning the sichos about Mashiach and Geula, as the Rebbe has told us repeatedly is the way to bring Mashiach, we're also learning about the Beis Hamikdash during the 3 weeks and helping rebuild the Beis Hamikdash. Look at that. We got double credit. Okay, so the first temple through King Shlomo, Yeshav Shlomo, Hashem Shlomo sat on the throne of God, who mostly came from above. Drawing down from above to below. And therefore it was not so connected to the lower realities. And therefore, ultimately, it was destroyed. The second temple that was built through Ezra, in the days of Ezra, Ikar name mainly was built from below. The energy from below to above. And therefore was much more connected to the lower worlds than the first temple was. But nevertheless, since it was connected to the lower part of reality, it was more limited in scope, if you will. And therefore, it also had to be destroyed. Was the right Rishon. Shechaz was also missing 5 things from the first temple. And the unique thing of the third and final temple, that it will unify both of these energies from above to below into one. And therefore, it will be done in the ultimate and complete way, Gula Nitchis, in the ultimate redemption, the Beit HaMikdash Nitzchi, and it will be an eternal temple. And therefore, there is an advantage of the third temple, of course, that will be eternal with the eternal redemption. And in fact, the Gula is sometimes referred to as the fourth redemption, referring to the 4 exiles we've been. Okay. Zion. And we see the finishing up of these books, the 4th book of the Torah, and how it's connected to the times we're in the 3 weeks. And as we announce and proclaim Chazak Chazak V'nit Chazek Shabbos Parshas Matos Matzah, we should have in mind this is referring to the third temple as well. The Sami Sefer Rebbeis. The Rebbe is just kind of summing up what we just talked about before. The Hazak is a completion in 3, and then we go to 4, which is a number in and of itself, and then ultimately go to 5, which is the completion of all of that. Hazak all Sefer Rebbeis. Gimel Shivos during the time of the 3 weeks. This is hinted in the advantage of the Beis Hamikdash Shlishi and this redemption. In the 4th month, which we're finishing up, and connected to the 4th Geula, and entering the 5th month of Av, Menachem Av, which is referred to as the 5th redemption or the final redemption. And this also is strengthening all over Torah and mitzvah observant. Especially considering all of our deeds and our time that we spent in the exile. And entering into the third temple, and again, the Rebbe emphasizes the fact that it will be eternal. Okay, now we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about another event that is happening right now that is going to connect all these matters together. Ches. Inyan Noisa B'Shabbos Zeh Hakasher Im Erev Shabbos B'Meshetrach Erev Chiva Shabbat. And on Erev Shabbat, it says we taste from Shabbat to prepare for Shabbat. Shchal Rosh Chodesh Menachem Av, as we're entering into Rosh Chodesh Menachem Av. Meforash B'Krab B'Parsha Seinu. V'al Haroyin HaKohen Lo Har Goymer Yamis. Chodesh Hamishi B'Echad LeChodesh Yom Hailula Shel Aaron HaKohen. It's known on the 5th month, the first day of the month, Rosh Chodesh, which this Shabbat is going to be the Hailula, the day of passing of Aaron HaKohen. B'Hakdama. She'erin Zay V'Syo Hamisa Ni Parasha B'Torah Shebechisuv. This is a unique thing in the entire Chumash, in the entire 5 books of the Torah. There's no other dates listed for any other figures discussed in the Torah. Not Moshe Rabbeinu, not Adam Rishon, not Avraham, Yitzchak, or Yaakov, not Yosef Atzadik. None of these holy Jews and main stars of the Torah's date of death is listed in the Torah. The only one is Aaron HaKohen. Very interesting. Mistaver the marsh. So there is to say that the interesting thing about this day, including general the service of Aaron HaKohen, because this is the day of the completion of his work. He reached the completion of all his work, all his Torah, and all his mitzvahs throughout his life. And therefore he shined from above to below, and also from below to above. So let's talk about this. Test. We know that the day of someone's passing, that means they've finished their work in this world. As it is written, the entire house of Israel cried for 30 days when Aaron HaKohen passed. Again, unique occurrence in the Torah. We don't learn about this about anyone else. Men, women, and children, they all cried. The Fisha Aaron Veridef Shalem Ahav, that he ran after peace and love of his fellow man. Lashon HaMishnah, as the Mishnah says, Ohev Shalom v'Doy Shalom, Ohev Es HaBrios, v'Kavan the Torah, as it says in Pirkei Avos, that he loved peace and pursued peace and brought the creations close to God's Torah. We know that Aaron HaKohen was likened to the was connected with the Enai HaKavod, the clouds of glory. All the example Parsha Senom, the Hamshech, the Mitas Aaron Na'ama Vishma Kanan, Decha Shemita Aaron Hu Harshamoam Nistacha Nene Kavod. Bir Hakash Rashachos the Veshani Ungash Muchetz Mitas Aaron Gomor Slemos Avodas. So Lemor Amalim Mecharine Kavod, the advantage of the clouds of glory, which are attributed to Aaron, is that unlike we see the Mayim of the well, which comes from Miriam, that this was limited and bound. It was a certain amount. The water only came out the amount that was needed specifically. This is from Moshe and Miriam. Moshe from the rock, and Miriam from the well. Each one of them had measured out a certain amount, and that was their connected schus. This is not the case with the clouds of glory, because the clouds of glory are what we call as makif. It wasn't like water that a certain amount was given to each one. They surrounded all the Jewish people in the desert and accompanied them wherever they went. And this is the whole idea of Aaron pursuing peace and being filled with peace and bringing them close to the Torah. It emphasizes this one point, achdus, of all the Jewish people. What does it mean, achdus? Meaning the point where everything is one, where there is no divisions, that each one of us come together as one, complete. And this is the energy of Aaron as the Kohen. I'm going to skip around a little bit here. Let's skip over Yud and hop to Yud Aleph. Okay, for Pratis Yosher, and more specifically, Budgash Menesha Aroin Chibara Achdus Beis Kavin Mamshach Alaya. And so these two things that are emphasized through Aaron HaKohen, unifying these two opposite energies of drawing down from above to below and elevating from below to above. combining them together. We see this in the blessings of the Kohan. Mitzvah aseh min haTorah, which is a positive mitzvah of the Torah for the Kohanim to bless the people. Yibrachu haKohanim al Yisrael v'kol yoyim and Nisyam v'kafayim. Lift up his hands and bless the people. And we do this now in the Kohen Baruch Hashem. And outside of Israel, we do the Kohen blessing just on Yom Tovim and holidays. In the land of Israel, we also do it on during Musaf on Shabbat and Rosh Chodesh. And in Yerushalayim, which I had the schus to live in for a year, every day you do Brachas Kohen. And it's the custom of most Sephardim and most Sephardi shuls around the world. They also do Brachas Kohen every day. Okay, we do Brachas Kohanim Mishneh Ba'isamalos the Bracha Tefillah Gam Yichad. And the unique thing about the Kohen blessing is it's considered the advantages of two things, of a blessing and of prayer combined together. The Kohen blessing has the same idea, that it has a blessings of a blessing, which is from above to below, and blessings of a prayer, which is from below to above. When we pray, we're elevating our energy back up to Hashem. And when we say a blessing, we're drawing God's energy down from above to below. These are combined in the blessings of the Kohanim. Is to say the drawing together and combining of the blessings that are drawing down from above to below and the elevating from below to above. This is connected to the number 3, as we said earlier, combining both of these things. So we're making a connection to this, again, these two energies, up to below and down to up. That Aaron was 123 when he died. And this is showing the completion of the year of 100 and the year of 20. And they added another 3 years, connecting to the number 3, which is the completion again of these energies up, down, together. Yud base. And we see the special connection to the fact that Aaron again passed on this day of Rosh Chodesh, which is going to be Shabbos, first day of the 5th day of the month, which is Menachem Av. Chodesh Hamishi, the 5th month. Kasher v'shaychus the darga chamishi shlemar mishachus mispar mistashlos chamishi the feroi spanar v'ganim v'gan naharim. As we said earlier, the number 5 is connected to this high energy, which is above all the worlds, the world of Adam Kadmon, if you will, and also the first day of the month. This is connected to a level of godliness, of oneness that is above any division. Kumur gashkan menishal rosh chodesh yom echad shlemar mishachus v'chein klal koyme hachodesh. The fact that the written Torah, as we said earlier, this is the only one of all of the personalities in the Torah that is specifically mentioned the day of his passing. And the fact that it's on the 5th month on the first day. And this is hinted on the fact of his deeds and his Torah learning and all of his service of all the days of his life. The one which is above any division whatsoever, referring to the one God, if you will. And it's connected to the blessing of the Kohanim, as we said, which is combining bracha and tefillah together. And this is the Aaron's work. He loved peace and pursued peace. And this is referring to a level that is above any divisions. This is the level of Aaron's work, which is connected to the level of 5. This is the total oneness in the upper worlds where there's no division at all whatsoever. There's the the 5th month on the first day. We're now preparing 30 days away from the month of Elul, which is an acronym of I am to my beloved and my beloved is to me. Again, the energy that's drawing down from above to below and below to above. And they're combined into one. Of course, as we've been talking about this whole time, combining these two energies together. And this is the same idea of Ani Ladodi Vadodi Li, which is what Elul was about. It's a time of tshuva, when we reunite our bond to God, that I am one with God and He is one with me, in a level above any division. Okay, Yud Gimel. And everything we've been talking about above must come to action, must come to actual deed. As we're standing on Shabbos Chazak and the completion of the 4th book of the Torah, and we're entering into the 5th book of the Torah. All its preparations for the true and complete redemption, which is known as the 5th redemption, which is completely above from the first two numbers, as we already said earlier. And it's emphasizing the point of oneness, above division. And this is the main energy we need to focus on, everyone. We have to focus on what brings us together. If you look closely at the news, and I don't care if it's coming from the right or the left or wherever it's coming from, they spend so much time always talking. You notice, even on the right channels, which, whatever, most people lean towards this direction. It doesn't matter. It's constantly division. And the lefts and the Democrats and the rights and the Trumpers and the anti, and all they do is cause division after division after division. And it's a basic principle. Anyone who's studied any basic warfare will teach you it's the number one rule of war. Divide and conquer your enemy. So that's what the Yetzer Hara is doing right now. He's trying to cause division and separate us. And they're lefters, they're right, they're settlers, they're orthodox, they're reform, they're this, they're that. And it's just separating us, when what we need to do is find the unifying things to bring us together as one. That's how we defeat the enemies. And this is the point of Achdus, which is above any type of separation. And this is emphasized by Aaron HaKohen. As it says in Masechta Avos, and be like the students of Aaron. Love peace, pursue peace, and bring the creations to God's Torah. And this is all about, the Rebbe again emphasizes this point of achdus, of oneness, of unity that is above separation. But Patius Yaiser, and more specifically, and specifically what it means to be like the Talmidan of Aaron. Hayu should be Lashon Sivo. It's a commandment. She'ein ze rak sipor al derek manhaga b'minas chasidim v'chama ninim b'masechtas Avos. Excuse me. And it's Sivoira. So he says, don't be like the students of Aaron. You're being commanded. You have to be. God's saying, be like the students. Not as this is a lofty goal to be, but I'm commanding you to be this way. Beis mitamidav dafka b'lashon rabim. It shouldn't be one. It should be many students you should raise up. And rise up many students. And continuing on, and we see this as connected to the Ahavas Israel, as it's connected to the true and complete redemption. And not only about nullifying the gullus and all the reasons for the gullus, because we're standing at the end and the completion of all of our deeds and work throughout the exile. The Achrisim called them based on Masaot, after we completed the 42 journeys, but Midbar Aramim in the nations and the desert amongst the nations of the world, talking about the times of the exile. And we already find ourselves already crossing over the Yericho river. And we're at the threshold of redemption. And for sure, the Rebbe says, we have already repaired and fixed all the things that needed to be fixed in the exile. And therefore, the emphasis right now has to be on Ahavas Yisrael, the love of a fellow Jew. And the Rebbe said, and this is the point, to bring about the true and complete redemption, to reach a point of oneness and achdus that is above from separation. And this is how the Jewish people need to come together as one. Because in the level of Yechida, which is the fifth level of the soul, we're all equal, we're all one, there's no separation. And we're all sparks from the fifth level. And the fifth level is connected to Mashiach himself. He is the general Yechida, as we say. And we're all connected to him. And this is what it means to bring them close to the Torah. And this is a preparation for the future Torah we're going to learn in the redemption. Okay, I'm skipping over Yud Daled. And going on to the final letters, we're going to have a very early finish this evening, which is good because I'm exhausted. And therefore we see everything we said above, in addition to what we are now finding ourselves in the completion of the 9 days. That we're supposed to do a siyum, a finishing of a Masechta of Gomorrah during these 9 days to bring joy in this time. And not only that, is joy of the Torah. And like a finishing of a Masechta. Ki chazina, tzerura, tzera, morban, shtem Masechtas of dinim, yemei, teva, the Rabban, chalakam, and then the special Kaddish we say after Kaddish HaGeula. Yesh listaldu yemei b'shan hazeh b'richa misil be'erev yom im hadar hamelech, and they should be in a way of fitting for the king with abundance. Nachad Rabim Yisrael Simcha Legamri Shal Torah, because the Torah always brings joy to the Jewish people. And Adain Eino Shaychin Lebanu Hasaga. All the rest of the Masil Erev Pesach Sheminhag Yisrael Habe B'chorim Katanim. Just like an Erev Pesach, even the firstborn need to fast unless they hear a Masechta, a completion, a seal. The Ira Shehasiyo in the Erev Pesach Eno Dugma Ma'alma Alashagam Chasimon the Tisha Yamim and Kay Hasim the Erev Pesach Hanada Gula Pesach. And just like we do Erev Pesach, we finish a Masechta to prepare us for the redemption of going out of Egypt. And when we have a Masechta on the 9 days, it's a preparation for the true and complete redemption. And just like when I took you out of Egypt, I will once again show you wonders. And we see this specifically in this year. Where God is already showing us wonders. And we find ourselves at the threshold of the redemption. That may be God's will. That we should take upon ourselves good resolutions in everything we've discussed above. And that this should all come to actuality, along with the true and complete redemption and the third base of Migdash. Of a pashtus in a simple way. In addition to the fact that we have already completed all 42 journeys in the desert amongst the nations of the world in the exile. And we're already crossing the Jericho. The Yardin, Jericho, Kadmar, Mizrach, the Oivrim, Es, Radim, Be'erev, Knas, Eretz Yisrael. We're ready to enter into the land of Israel. The Eretz Yisrael, Atzma, Haluchim, Ba'arabah. Yushlaim HaKodesh, and we should go to the holy temple. the holy city, the base of Migdash Shlishi in the third temple, the Kodesh Kadoshim, until the Kodesh Kadoshim. And there we will find the Aaron and the Luchos. And the dead will arise from the dust. Moshe Aaron, amen, with Moshe and Aaron amongst them. Kol HaTzadikim, V'nasi Yisrael Mehem, and all the holy Jews will rise up first along with our leaders. Kol HaKadosh V'nasi D'Reinu Mehem, and the Frierdiker Rebbe together with them. Including all the souls and bodies of the Yidden in this generation. And our sons and our daughters, our young and our old. We will all come back together and learn the new Torah Chadash Miti Teitz, and the Hadavar Moshe, the Ram Moshe, call Yisrael, and we will all the Jewish people together. And the most important thing is it happen immediately in actuality. That was a short sikha this evening. I wish everyone a blessed week, and we should have the true and complete redemption immediately.